Pokemon collecting is an expensive hobby. I mean, just to get it into the hobby, you need to spend upwards of $260 on a Switch Lite and a single game. But how expensive can it really get? I've spent the last 4 years collecting as many unique and rare Pokemon as I can find, but today I want to talk about the most expensive Pokemon that are out there. Now, I want to set a few ground rules before we get started. This list is going to assume that you already own a Switch and a premium subscription to Pokemon Home, so the cost of the Switch and Home subscription will not be factored in at all. However, I will be factoring in the cost of every single game as well as hardware and necessary accessories. For all Switch titles, we'll be going with the retail price of $60, and for everything 3DS and older, we'll be using the average prices found on eBay. Secondly, I'm going to try to include one Pokemon per entry, but as you'll soon see, that's not possible for a number of entries on this list. Finally, we're going to price out the cheapest method of getting each Pokemon from its original game all the way into Home. For example, if we're transferring up a Pokemon caught in Generation 3, we would need a Game Boy Advance, a Nintendo DS, a 3DS, a Gen 4 game, a Gen 5 game, and a Gen 7 game, as all that is necessary to move the Pokemon legitimately into Home. And since I don't want to be rattling off the same numbers over and over again, here are the prices for some of the most common hardware we'll be discussing today. Last note before we get started, every Pokemon we will be discussing today can be obtained by you legitimately using licensed Nintendo hardware. This means that we won't be hacking in any Pokemon, and more importantly, we won't be buying any individual Pokemon off of eBay. This also means that we won't be discussing Pokemon Go in any capacity today. Also, the 2DS and 3DS consoles seem to no longer be advertised on eBay as having bank installed, so we'll be working with the standard prices of an $80 2DS. We also are not going to be discussing taxes and shipping, as that will vary from person to person. Now, with all that out of the way, let's talk about the top 10 most expensive Pokemon you can have in your Pokemon Home collection. Honorable mention goes to the Regigigas from Pokemon Platinum, because in order to get to Regigigas, you first need the Regitrio from Pokemon Ruby or Sapphire. And then once you've transferred this Regigigas all the way up, you will have spent $410. Now, I know that may sound like a lot, but it's nothing compared to the rest of the list. Our list officially starts with the Manaphy egg from Pokemon Ranger. Pokemon Ranger allows you to redeem one Manaphy egg per copy of the game, so Pokemon Ranger has become an increasingly rare and valuable item. Pokemon Ranger can be purchased on eBay for around $100, and after hatched in Heart Gold and Soul Silver and transferred all the way up to Home, this Pokemon would cost you $450 total. Coming in at number 9 is Rayquaza from Heart Gold and Soul Silver. In order to get Rayquaza in either game, you'll first need to see every Pokemon in Johto twice in order to catch Kyogre in Heart Gold and Groudon in Soul Silver. Once you have both in a single game, and no transferring from Generation 3 doesn't count, I tried, you'll have the opportunity to catch Rayquaza. Once caught, you can transfer it from your DS up to Gen 5 on a 2DS, and then to Gen 7, and by the time Rayquaza lands in Home, you'll have spent a total of $460. Next up at number 8 is the Pokeball gift Magearna you can earn by transferring every Pokemon from Bulbasaur to Eternatus into Pokemon Home. To do this, you'll need a copy of Pokemon Sword or Shield, Pokemon Scarlet or Violet, Let's Go Pikachu or Eevee, Brilliant Diamond or Shining Pearl, Legends Arceus, and Legends Z8 to get almost all of the Pokemon that you need, as well as Omega Ruby or Alpha Sapphire for Spinda and Deoxys, and Pokemon Black or White for Victini. Once you have caught all 890 Pokemon, you can finally get the Pokeball Magearna for the low price of just $490. Sitting at number 7 is our first tie, Haley's Mew and Fiona from My Pokemon Ranch for the Wii. My Pokemon Ranch was a Wii Shop exclusive that is no longer legitimately obtainable for any Wii that doesn't already have it installed. The only Wii I could find on eBay with Ranch pre-installed was being sold for $270. Once purchased, you'll need a DS with a Gen 4 and a Gen 5 game, as well as a 2DS with a Gen 7 game. Receiving and transferring these two Pokemon all the way up to Home would cost you a total of $527. And we have another tie in our number 6 spot, the Eon Ticket duo of Latias and Latios from Generation 3. To get either of these legendary Pokemon, you would need a Game Boy Advance, a copy of Ruby or Sapphire, a $25 e-reader, and the Eon Ticket itself, which will run you $175. After transferring either of them into home, you'll have spent $565 total. Jumping up nearly $200 is the top 5 spot, which is Jirachi from the Pokemon Coliseum bonus disc in Generation 3. Now, you don't actually need a copy of Coliseum for this, but you do need the bonus disc, and you'll need a GameCube GBA link cable, and a Game Boy Advance, as well as a Gen 3 game to get it into Gen 3. From there, you'll send it up to Gen 4, and then Gen 5, and then Gen 7, and finally into home, having spent a total of $725. Sitting at number 4 is my personal favorite, Hisuian Typhlosion. No, I'm not even joking. You see, this isn't just any Hisuian Typhlosion. You see how this guy says he came from the Hoenn region? This specific Typhlosion was gifted as a Cyndaquil by Professor Elm after catching the entire regional dex in Pokemon Emerald, meaning you need both Ruby and Sapphire in addition to Emerald in order to get this gift. Once you've been gifted your Cyndaquil, you'll need to send it all the way up into home and then evolve it in Hisui in order to fully make this Pokemon unique. So this Hoenn-born Hisuian form Johto starter would set you back a staggering $800. In our top 3 spot is the unlikely pairing of Pikachu and Celebi. More specifically, the Japanese Coliseum bonus disc Pikachu and Celebi. To get these two into your Gen 3 game, you'll need a Japanese GameCube, which will set you back $160, a Japanese copy of Coliseum for $50, the bonus disc itself, which sits around $190, two $70 GBAs, a Japanese copy of Ruby or Sapphire for $45, and an English copy of either game. Once you've done all that and transferred your Pokemon up into home, you'll have spent $940 on just these two Pokemon. Our runner-up is the most expensive single Pokemon on this list, the e-reader Scizor that was distributed during Generation 3. The first step in getting this guy is the $250 e-reader card. To get it into home, you'll first need a Japanese GameCube and Coliseum, along with a Japanese Generation 3 game. Then you'll need to trade it over to an English Gen 3 game and all the way up to home. Once you've done all of that, you'll have spent $990 on just this one Pokemon. $1,000 is a lot for just one Pokemon, but it pales in comparison to our final entry on this list. The most expensive Pokemon you can have in Pokemon Home in 2026 is actually a 4-way tie. A Swablu that knows False Swipe, a Zigzagoon with extreme speed, a Skitty with the move Payday, and a Pichu that knows Surf all exist as the prize in the predecessor to Bank Pokemon Box on the GameCube. Pokemon Box in the US is both extremely rare and extremely valuable, priced at $2,000 on eBay, meaning this one game clears out our entire top 10 list before we've even gotten it into home. All the hardware necessary to transfer these 4 Pokemon will set you back an additional $500, meaning that these Pokemon would cost you at least $2,500 if you wanted to add them to your home collection. So to recap, here's the list of the most expensive Pokemon you can have right now at home. Manaphy from Pokemon Ranger hatched in Heart Gold or Soul Silver for $450. Rayquaza in Heart Gold and Soul Silver for $460. Pokemon Magearna for $492. Haley's Fione and Mew from Pokemon Ranch for $525. The Eon Ticket Duo for $565. The Coliseum Bonus Disc Jirachi for $725. The Hisuian Form Hoenn-born Typhlosion for $800. The Japanese Coliseum Bonus Disc Celebi and Pikachu for $940. The Japanese e-reader Scizor for $990. And finally, the Swablu, Zigzagoon, Skitty, and Pichu from Pokemon Box for $2,500. And we're not done. Right now, I want to give a huge shout out to my friends over on our Discord server for not only helping me to work on this video, but also for asking some very good questions like, how much would it cost to get all of these Pokemon in home? So let's break it down. On the hardware side, you'll need a Japanese GameCube for $160, an English GameCube for $90, a Wii that already has my Pokemon Ranch installed for $270, 2 Game Boy Advances for $70 each, a DS Lite for $70, a 2DS for $80, a GameCube to GBA link cable for $25, and an e-reader for another $25. For the accessories, you would need the Eon Ticket for $175 and a Scizor e-reader card for $250. The list of games you would need are the Japanese copy of Coliseum with a bonus disc for a combined $240, the English Coliseum bonus disc for $220, a Japanese copy of Ruby and an English copy of Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, a copy of Pokemon Ranger, and a copy of Diamond or Pearl for $35. Both Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, Pokemon Black or White, Pokemon Omega Ruby or Alpha Sapphire, any Generation 7 game, and finally 6 Switch titles, as well as the stupidly expensive $2,000 copy of Pokemon box, meaning that if you owned only the Switch and wanted to build this entire list from scratch, you need to spend a grand total of $4,980 for the top 10 and $5,105 if you include Regigigas. I'm having to re-record this because I'm bad at math. So yeah, I stand by my statement earlier that Pokemon is an expensive hobby. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If I got anything wrong in my math or in my research, please let me know down in the comments. And if there are any corrections to be made, I'll be making them in a pinned comment below. I hope you all have a great day and I'll talk to you again soon. Peace.